Today, I'm gonna guide you through video editing basics in Photoshop. Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace, and you can find me on Phlearn.com, where we make learning Photoshop and photography fun. And I'm really excited about this episode. Not just this episode, but I'm excited about the next coming 4 episodes, because we've designed a special series on working with video in Photoshop. And we've got 4 episodes that are gonna take you from all the way from like learning, getting started with video, to learn how to color grade and add titles and transitions, and then how to export your video and how to get it online as well. So today we're doing our getting started video. We're basically getting a good feel for what's going on with video in Photoshop. I'm gonna show you guys some great features you can use to edit your video in Photoshop, and also talk about why you would actually use Photoshop to edit video in the first place. So let's go ahead and start off with that. Why would you use Photoshop to edit video? Well, for those of you guys who don't know, there are video editing programs, things like Adobe Premiere and After Effects and Final Cut Pro and even iMovie. And all these programs are designed to edit video, and they do a great job editing video. But sometimes you don't either own these programs, or you're not very familiar with them, or maybe you'd like to bring some of the Photoshop features like levels, adjustment, layers, and things like that into your video. Well, you'll be happy to know that Photoshop really does a good job processing video. I've been messing around with it over the last couple of days, and I'm actually pretty surprised with how well it does handle video. So I wanted to make this video on video in Photoshop to kind of show you guys what you can do in Photoshop and what the advantages are to using Photoshop to some of the other programs that you may not either have used before, maybe you're not that familiar with those programs. So now we know there are a lot of other programs that are specially designed to edit video. So are there any advantages to using Photoshop? Well, in my opinion, there are advantages. You can edit video in Photoshop just as you would edit photos. So if you're already comfortable using like curves and levels adjustment layers, you can do things like color grading and titles and transitions very easily in Photoshop. So you're gonna be able to get a great final product without having to learn much new and be familiar with an interface that you already know and love for editing still photos. So in this video, we're gonna show you guys basically how to get into video in Photoshop, how to understand the basics, and then throughout this series of 4 videos, I'm gonna show you guys basically how to create a product from start all the way to finish, so you can learn a lot of the advantages that Photoshop has to offer when editing video. So let's go ahead and jump into Photoshop and start editing video. Now, the first thing I need to do is import my video footage into Photoshop. And there are actually 2 ways to do this. And in my opinion, it's gonna be very helpful for you to know both ways. So I'm gonna teach you both ways. Okay, the first thing to do is we're gonna do the first method. We're doing the first one first and the second one second. I'm gonna go to File, we're gonna go down to Scripts, and we're gonna go down to here where we say Load Files into Stack. Now, you've probably seen me do this on Phlearn for regular images. We're gonna do the same thing for videos. So we're gonna say Use Files. I'm gonna go ahead and hit Browse right here, and I'm gonna go back. Basically, I'm just gonna find our episode today here. Okay, video in Photoshop, clips, and I'm gonna shift click on all of these clips. So I've got Phlearn sample video 1 through 8. Now, we're actually providing all the source video that we're gonna be using in these episodes for download on Phlearn.com. That way you can go to Phlearn, you can download these videos, and you can follow along with us throughout these 4 episodes. It's gonna be great. So just click on your screen right now and you'll be able to download the exact video clips that I'm using in this episode. Okay, so let's go ahead and click. We're gonna shift click on all of our 1 through 8 Phlearn sample video. Let's hit open. Here you can see they are loaded right there, and we're gonna hit OK. So as of now, not very different from actually loading images into a stack in Photoshop. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna place all these different videos, and it's going to stack them together into the same document. Now, we're using images from our Phlearn method, photo shoot. So we have, video. So used to saying images. We're using video from our Phlearn method, photo shoot. So let's go ahead and full screen this out so I can see what I'm doing. And now comes the most important part of learning how to edit video in Photoshop, and that is making sure we have our video or a timeline editor visible. So we're gonna go to Window and then down here to Timeline. Okay, now the timeline is going to be your main area for editing video in Photoshop. This is where you're gonna be able to scrub through footage, arrange clips, and cut things and move things around This is going to be the source of your video editing in Photoshop. So just to show you that we do actually have videos loaded up, we can go ahead and move our timeline here, and we can see that we've got video here in Photoshop, which is great. Now, by default, all of our layers are loaded in our timeline as one on top of the other. That's actually not what we want. We want our video to be linear, okay? We want our video to be like one after another rather than one on top of another. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift click on all of our layers. So I'm going to shift click on all these layers here, okay? Now I need to load these into what's called a video group. So in order to load these into a video group, I'm going to go to this little clip. You can see it's like a little film strip with a down arrow. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go new video from clips. So I've selected all my clips. Now I'm going to say new video from these clips. So let's click on that, new video group from these clips. Let's see what that did. Okay, first thing here in our layers panel, we've got a video group. And now in that video group, we have all of our clips. Okay? Next thing it did is instead of all these clips being one on top of another, like they were before, now they're one after each other. So they play as though they're a continuous timeline, as though they're a continuous movie. And now I'm set up in a way to where I can actually start editing video in Photoshop. So remember guys, that was method 1 for getting video into Photoshop. We went to File, down to Scripts, down to Load Files into Stack. From there we chose the videos that we want to be in Photoshop, we brought them together, hit Open, and then after they loaded in Photoshop, we made sure to select all of the layers, go to our little film strip here, and then we go down to New Video Group from Clips, and now we're ready to edit video. So that's method 1. Now I'm going to show you method 2 just in case your workflow happens to be a little bit different. So now we're going to show you the second method for importing video into Photoshop. And this method is really great when maybe you don't have exactly all the clips that you want to use in your video pre-picked out. Like you don't have them perfectly in a folder. Maybe you want to start working as a project and bringing in clips as you actually work on it. So this is the way to do that workflow, which really it totally depends on how you're editing. That's why I'm showing you both techniques. So let's go ahead and start off. Instead of going to load files into stack, this time I'm just going to hit Controller Command O, which is open. And I'm going to click on our first sample video. So we're going to hit open here. And now let's go ahead and full screen this out. Now we have one sample video. This is all we have. It's just one video in our timeline. You can see we do have a video group, but in that video, just one video. In the video group, there's just one video. So now what I want to do is figure out a way to get more videos into this timeline. Very easy to do. I'm going to click on this film strip, same like we did with the other technique. Click on the film strip and just go to Add Media. So instead of bringing a bunch of clips together and making a video group, I've already got a video group. I'm going to go to Add Media. And now I'm just going to shift click on 2 through 8 and hit Open. There we go. And it's going to go ahead and add all that media to my timeline, just like we had it before. And here we go. We can see all that here in our video group as well. So if I was working on a project and everything was really great and I found another clip that I wanted to add to this project, easy to do. Just click on this little down arrow here, go to Add Media, find the media that you'd like. It's going to be a video, it could be photos, things like that too. It's going to go ahead and stick this in your timeline and show you how the video group and the timeline interact with each other. Cool, so we've imported all our videos, we've got our timeline going, we're feeling pretty good about ourselves, we're ready to start working in video in Photoshop. I want to show you one more thing that has to do with the timeline and the layers that's going to help make things a lot more clear when it comes time to edit. Okay, so here's our timeline. I can use my zoom arrows so I can zoom really far in, or I can zoom really far out so I can see more at the same time. And I can scrub through my footage just as I would normally scrub through my footage. Now, if you want to change the order of any of your video clips, the order of our clips that you can see here, so the first clip, and then the second clip plays, and then the third clip plays, that's actually reflected here in our video group. So layer 1 is the first clip. This sample video 2 is the second clip. Video 3 is the third clip. And you can see as I click on these, it actually changes what's highlighted here in my timeline. So if you want to change the order of your clips, it's very easy to do. If I click on layer 1 and just drag it above layer 2, look at that. It changed the order of our clips. So this clip right here where she's walking into the room and jumping on the bed, now that's there. If I want to make that the third clip, click and drag there, and the video of her jumping on the bed is going to be the third clip. You can also click right here in your timeline editor and actually click and drag these and move these around too. So you can just click and drag and say, I want that to be first, second, or third. So it's important to know that the order of your video layers here actually represent the order that they're going to wind up playing in the video. So the layers here on the very bottom will play first, and so on and so forth. So it does make a difference. The timeline and the layers, they do interact with each other. All right, so now we've imported our videos, we've learned about a timeline, and we've learned the relationship between the timeline and the layers panel. So now let's go ahead and start editing the video, something you would actually wind up doing with your video editing. So this clip, for instance, here it's a really great clip. This girl's talking to a friend and they're having some fun, and it's just a cute little moment of her in her underwear, basically just talking to a friend, right? But I don't need the entire clip here. All I want is part of this clip to wind up making it in the final video. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scrub throughout this video to find something that I really like. Maybe I just wanna capture like a little moment of our subject like laughing and kind of smiling, because that's kind of fun. Like that's what we want, right? So let's figure out about where that is. And maybe that's right here. I'm gonna hit the play button or the space bar here on my keyboard, and I'm gonna play the video from right there. So there is just like a little clip of our subject laughing, which I really like that clip. We're gonna start it right about there, and it's gonna end right there. We don't need to use the entire clip. That's not the point. The point is to make a good video in the end, right? So I'm scrubbing basically to the place where I want our video to start. Now, I've clicked here, I have my selected footage. I know that I wanna go ahead and cut my footage right here. So this footage, I want this area to stay, and this area, I don't need it anymore. So we're gonna go ahead and click this little scissors, which is just going to cut our footage right there. Now, this group, this entire video layer right there, I don't really need this anymore. I don't need the original footage that was contained in all of this stuff. So what I can do, I can just click on this and just hit the delete key, and it's gonna totally go away. So now what I've got instead, let's just scroll over here, instead of that long footage, I've just got this, where she's just laughing for, a split second. Let's go ahead and mute our video. She's laughing for a split second, and maybe we want to just stick that somewhere in our video. Now, keep in mind, the cuts that we're making are not permanent. You can actually get information back very easily. Now, the thing that I love about video editing in Photoshop is that you can change the duration of your clips, but that's never going to be permanent. You can always stretch them back out if you'd like to. For instance, this clip here, we can see it's a very short clip, just a little bit of a laugh. But if I want more to this clip, all I have to do is go to right to the beginning. We'll see our cursor is going to change, and I'm going to click here and then drag this out to include more. And I can see a preview window of what it's actually going to change. So let's start it maybe here. I'm going to let go. It's going to automatically add more to this clip and place it there in my timeline. So there, instead of being 2 seconds long, now we have 5 seconds. And I can continue to work with that on my multiple videos. Let's say this one. There we go. She's flipping her hair right there. And now I want that video to end right there. So I'm going to click our video here, drag it over to the exact place I want my video to stop. It's going to go ahead and snap to my red line, let go, and there we go. Now this clip of video is going to stop exactly where we cut it. So very easy to work with video in Photoshop. Basically, we're just clicking on either end and we're moving them to adjust the areas that we want to be visible in our final video. And if you want to change where the clips are, just simply click on any clip and drag it to a different place, and Photoshop will automatically put it there, and it'll automatically adjust your layer order to reflect those changes as well. So we've learned how to import our footage, we've learned about our timeline, we've learned about our video, we've learned how to cut things around. The next thing to get into is keyframes. Now, keyframes are basically a way to control what happens in a video throughout time. So with photos, you're always editing and there's no time related, right? It's just like, it's a photo. It's always gonna be the same, right? With a video, you have changes throughout time. So keyframes are a way to make sure that you have control of certain changes you wanna make throughout a period of time. So let's jump into an example to make it a little more clear. So our first example on keyframes, what I'm gonna do is go to my layers, we're gonna go to our video group, and I'm gonna go ahead and close down my video group. Now I'm gonna make a new adjustment layer. So same as you would it's the same as you would do in Photoshop. I'm gonna make a solid color adjustment layer, go all the way to red, and hit OK. So you can see we have regular layers here in Photoshop now. It's still Photoshop. It's not like turned into some like crazy crack version of the program, a crazy crack version. We still have Photoshop. So here, this color fill layer right now, you can see it's the only thing I have visible, and then it ends right there, and now I can see underneath it, and it gets its own video layer. So I can move this around. If I click over there and put it over there, then I can see video before it, red, and then video after it. So this is going to be above our video group. Now, if I want to click here and drag it down below the video group, there we go. Now we have that red block, which is right here in the timeline, is going to be below our video group. So I can't really see anything, right? Like if I hit play, I can't really see anything. Well, it's kind of like jumpy, but because it's below our video, I'm not gonna be able to see what's going on underneath our video. So you can move these layers in and around each other. Now, why is this actually helpful? Well, let's go ahead and show you guys how keyframes work, and then it should make things a lot more clear. All right, guys, so now it's time to look at our keyframes. And for this example, what I wanna do is I wanna make one of our video clips, I want it to go from invisible to visible, or transparent to opaque. So here's how we're gonna do that. I'm gonna go to my video group 1. Let's go ahead and open that up. And we see I've got a couple different options here. I've got position, opacity, and style. So if I wanna make something invisible and then visible again, we're gonna use opacity, because that's what opacity does. You could also change the position and layer style, and we're gonna get into that in our other episodes. So here we have our first layer, and you can see as I'm scrubbing through it, everything looks great, and I wanna make this layer invisible to like right here, and then I wanted it to fade in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and click here on our opacity. This little looks like a stopwatch. This is how we create our first keyframe. So we're gonna click there, and it creates a keyframe in our animation. So we can see there's our keyframe, and it's represented right here in our image. Now, a keyframe is like a visual snapshot, okay? So exactly what my opacity is, because this is an opacity keyframe. So I have an opacity of 100% right now. So where this keyframe is, Photoshop is going to say exactly where this keyframe is. I will go to the opacity that Aaron has decided, or that you've decided. I'm not gonna come to your house and decide your opacity. So remember, we wanted this frame to be invisible and then fade into being visible, right? So let's go ahead and bring our opacity down to 0%. So right now, our opacity of this entire, basically the opacity of the entire clip is 0%, because we only have one keyframe, and that keyframe is telling it to have an opacity of 0%. Now, let's say we brought this clip a little bit farther along here, and I want our video to be now 100% visible here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on this little diamond, and that's gonna give me another keyframe. So we have this one, okay? That's gonna give us our opacity of 0. Now let's go right to this other one, and I'm gonna click on it, okay? Let's click on this yellow guy so it knows, hey, I wanna select you. What do you wanna do with me? Well, achoo! I'm gonna sneeze, apparently. I'm gonna just keep going with it. Normally we've cut that out, but I'm gonna keep going with it. Okay, so remember, this guy over here, opacity of 0. This guy over here still says opacity of 0 because it's just inheriting what it already had. But I'm gonna take this and crank it all the way to 100%. Okay, so now we have an opacity of 0 and opacity of 100. So what happens in and around this? Well, just assume like time. It's gonna keep going until something tells it to change. So from here to here, it's all gonna be 0% opacity. Now from here to here, it's gonna slowly build up to 100%, and from here to the end of the clip, it's going to be 100% visible. So let's see if that actually works. There we go. Let's hit play here. It's playing, this clip is invisible. It's slowly starting to become visible, and there we go. By here, it's completely visible. So that's how our keyframes work with our timeline. Now, why do I have this red color fill layer under there? Let's go ahead and extend that to the entire clip. So we can see if I'm making this layer invisible, all we see is the red, and then this kind of starts to fade in, and then we see our clip, which is great. Now, I don't want this to be red. That doesn't look really good, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna just edit this as I would normally edit in Photoshop. Just double click on our color fill layer. I'm just gonna change that color to white, okay? I had it as red so you could very easily see what it was doing. Now, let's see what we're doing here. Let's go ahead and hit that play button. White, and our clip fades in. And that looks pretty good. Now, there's a little bit too much time in the beginning, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click here, okay? And I'm gonna just drag this in to decide, you know what, I want the clip to start about there. And then our color fill adjustment layer can just go the same length. So I've reduced the amount of time that's at the beginning of our clip. Let's go ahead and hit the play button. There we go. And that looks like a pretty good beginning to a clip. Now, if I wanted to do a title sequence, which we will get to in the, I believe it's video number 3 in this series, we're gonna add a title sequence above this as well. So it's a really great way for me to fade in this footage, just like that, and reveal the color fill layer that's below. Now, I can move these at any point in time as well. I can move this to change to where, you know what, I want it to be totally invisible up until there, and then I want it to quickly fade in. There we go. Or I can have the fade in last a long time. Because again, all it's doing is it says, I know I want to be 0% visible here, wherever this yellow diamond is, and I want to be 100% visible over here. So you're able to dictate what that looks like. There we go. And that's a very nice slow fade. Now let's say we want to go to the entire duration of the clip. We can do that too. So it's going to just very, very slowly load from invisible to visible, and beneath it we'll have a white layer. So let's click play and see what that looks like. Pretty cool. So I hope by now you understand a little bit more about how keyframes actually work and how we can use them in Photoshop to edit video. All right, guys, so that wraps up our introduction to video editing in Photoshop. So I hope you have a little bit better of a hold of what you can actually do when it comes to video editing in Photoshop. And keep in mind, this is one of 4 episodes we're bringing to you on showing you the different features and the ways you can actually edit your videos in Photoshop. Keep in mind these essential steps when you're first starting to edit video in Photoshop. First, you've got 2 options for importing footage into Photoshop. The first is go to File, down to Scripts, and Load Files into Stack. This is gonna put all your video layers together. I recommend this method if you have all the video layers you already know picked out. Then you can go ahead and shift click on all your layers, click on your little film strip, the down arrow, and go to New Video Group from Clips. That's gonna give you a video group, and now you can start linearly editing. Now the second technique is just to go to File and then Open a video like you normally would. It's gonna go ahead and give you a video group and stick that footage in the video group. Then to bring in more footage, go to your film strip, and instead of going to New Video Group from Clips, just go to Add Media. Then you can choose the videos that you'd like, and it's going to automatically stick them in the same timeline. Now, I'd recommend using this strategy if you're one of the people who likes to kind of work on things as you're going along. Maybe you don't have all the clips decided in the very beginning. You want to continue to add clips and allow this thing to progress on its own. So that's a really good way to edit video and add media as you go along. Next, we showed you how the timeline and the layers panel relate to each other, and how the lowest layer is going to play first in your timeline. You can change the order of your layers and your timeline simply by clicking and dragging and moving them around. Next, we showed you how to cut some video in Photoshop. The simplest way to do it is to use your scrub slider to decide where you want the cut to happen, and then click and drag from the beginning or the end of some footage. It's going to allow you to make that clip, but you can always get it back if you need to. And last, we showed you how keyframes work. This is going to allow you control over time with your video. You can control things like the style, the opacity, and the position of your videos. You can even control layer masks, but that's getting a little bit more fancy. We're gonna get into that in future episodes. And we've even shown you that you can add a color fill adjustment layer, just like you would normally do on a still photo in Photoshop. Then you can put that above the footage or below the footage to get the best result when you're finally editing your video together in Photoshop. All right, guys, if you liked this episode, there's a pretty good chance you're going to like the other 3 episodes that are coming your way editing video in Photoshop. And if you just like hanging out with me and you love to learn more about Photoshop and photography, click on your screen right now. It's a subscribe thing. It's super easy to do. We don't send you any spam or crap like that. We basically just release free episodes teaching Photoshop and photography every single week. And by clicking that subscribe button, you're going to be updated when we release new episodes. So if you have an idea for an episode or a question or a comment about today's episode, this is the first time I've taught video on Photoshop. So if you're like, yeah, more video, let me know in a comment right down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much, guys. I'll Phlearn you later. Bye, everyone. All right, the first way is going to File, going down. First way, ooh, voice crack. Okay, so now it's time to art. Okay, so we've imported our cool. So right now, all right, so what about, all right, so what make, so we've learned how, okay, so we've,